Hi, I'm Gemma Montgomery and welcome to the Excel with Ease podcast, bringing together service-based business owners in the aesthetic, beauty, medical health and wellness sector. Here we discuss different topics that will help you grow your business with ease while supporting your ultimate life vision. Good morning, just on an absolutely gorgeous dog walk, blue skies on this October day, just very cold, so excuse me if my teeth are chattering a little bit. I am quite laid up, but I just thought perfect time, school holidays, so it's always a little bit manic, so I've got an hour to myself just to dog walk. And the topic that I want to talk about this week, it's a topic that can make many people feel uncomfortable inside, because it's a topic that just brings up such a vast array of emotions. So I have, for everybody that comes through the Timeless Academy that has accredited training, everybody goes into a WhatsApp group where it's a group we can share ideas, we can ask questions if we're unsure about anything. And whenever I approach the topic of pricing, it goes a little bit like crickets. And this is nobody's fault. I can just sense it, picking up on the energy, that it's a subject people just don't like talking about. But yet, this subject is the very thing that gives us a business, because without it, there is no business. And as I've said before, it's a subject that causes feelings within us all. And when we think about money, we've all had just so many different experiences around money, around how we view money, around how we view people that have money, around how we view things that are sold for a certain amount and things that aren't. And God, it's such a wide topic, isn't it? You could literally talk about this subject for a week. And it's not something I nailed from day one. I've had to constantly go inside and examine and really look at, so that I can get to grips with it and not let it be a barrier to my success going forward and what I feel is achievable based on my own inner experiences. So, the things that shape us and our views around money it's growing up, really. That's where it starts. So it starts with your parents, grandparents, siblings, caregivers. It usually starts really, really deep rooted into the things that we were told around money growing up, that then we take on as our own belief system too. And it's not very often we stop to question our own belief system and whether these beliefs we hold are actually true. And again, it's not our parents' fault, because that belief system that they've adopted often comes from their parents, our grandparents, and so on and so forth. And not very often do people stop to actually question things, be the ones to actually break the cycle of the beliefs that have been passed down generationally. And it was a big one for me. I come from a classic working class family, really. My mum's been a carer all her life. My mum and dad aren't together, but my dad he's been a joiner all his life. Both of them work bloody hard, not work shy, literally working hard, harder than a lot of people. But yet they both had the belief system that money was difficult to come by. Once it came in, it came out. You had to work hard. Yeah, there's working hard, and then that kind of doesn't correlate to financial success, which is, again, a topic I'll touch on in this podcast, but a topic for another time. So I don't by any means come from what you would class, if you're looking at society's view of money and class and things like that, class systems. I don't come from a middle class background, although there are differences in both sides of the family between my mum's side and my dad's side. So any success that you would look at as financial success that's been created within my family, so I'm talking mums, brothers, sisters, their kids, some of them haven't carried on that kind of belief system. So I have cousins who have a majorly successful plumbing and heating business that you would look on paper and think they're kind of looking like the definition of financial success. My mum's brother, he kind of looked at things differently, and he kind of broke out the mould of what had been traditionally passed down. So when you start to see things and you start to look around and see people doing it differently, it kind of gives you hope, really. But what I'm trying to get at is I don't come from a family where money's being passed down. We've inherited money. Quite the opposite. My grandma and granddad, they grew up in a council house, but both hard workers, kept the gardens lovely, worked all their life, but just didn't own their own property. So that was kind of my mum's side of the family. And then my nana on my dad's side and granddad, that was a little bit different. So my dad traditionally is from a mining town as you're going into Derbyshire, a little place called Bolsover. My granddad was a miner. He had like 12 brothers and sisters. They were all in the mining community. And my nana, who married into that community, she sort of did things a little bit differently. And she was somebody that we were so close. She was, she brought me up on my dad's side of the family when my mum and dad split up, and I learnt a lot from her. So she was a bit of a pioneer without knowing it really. I didn't know that as a kid. It's just looking back now. But, she moved from Halifax over to Derbyshire when it took 3 buses to get there. We couldn't just jump in the car. I don't even think the M1 was built then. Settled in to that community and didn't rely on my granddad's salary. She decided to set up hairdressing in the home. She used the extension that was on the home, brought people to the home to make money. Then when she moved back to Halifax, she opened her own shop, which was like a greengrocer's. Then she had like market stalls and cafes and things like that. She was just an independent woman and a really big influence on my life. She was on her own really from the age of 50 when my granddad died. She never met anybody else, never remarried. But she kind of poured her heart into me really, and she only had my dad, which was her only son. So she took me under her wing, and she was like one of the biggest, most influential impacts I think I've ever had in my life really. But what I'm trying to get at is I could see how money could be managed and how views on money were just taken a little bit differently. But both equally, either side of the family, extremely hard working. My nana just chose to direct that money differently. She invested in property. She was a landlady. She had a couple of properties, which back then was massive. Women didn't do that kind of thing. She invested in stocks and shares. She did have brothers that I think were quite savvy as well, that gave us some sort of probably financial insight and things like that. But her brothers built their own homes, and so our money could be made in property back then. So I guess I had both sides of the family influences growing up, but equally, as I've said, hardworking, just directing the money a little bit differently. One side of the family had a bit more financial knowledge, and the other side, I guess, didn't, but equally loving and hardworking. So you can imagine as a child, I had all sorts of money stories and beliefs ingrained into me. That money had to be hard, it had to be, people that had money, particularly from my mum's influence, her view was kind of that if you had money, there was always something else that had to come, the shoe had to drop, I guess is the right way to put it. Just basically, I guess, the fact that money was really hard to come by and hard work definitely didn't correlate to financial success. And that, people that had money got there by hook or by crook, probably done something shady, something wrong, or they had it, but that meant something else had to, drop in their life. They couldn't have it all, basically. That was a belief that I, could have taken on, and I know I did, which I'll talk about. Another one was, you hear all the sayings around money growing up. Money doesn't grow on trees. What I want doesn't get. You could just literally, if you sat on your own for a whole day, took out your journal and really wrote down all the beliefs, all the stories that you've heard around money growing up, there would be so much more than what you realise. And then there's not even just the beliefs, there's the experiences around money. So you might have grown up where, you saw your parents get into financial debt. It might have broke the marriages down. It could be dad had a business and went bankrupt. Or It could be, as I've said, that, you work hard all your life and you don't have anything to show for it. Just things that you've ingrained by osmosis, really. So things that you've witnessed as a child, as a teenager, and then into your adulthood. And all these stories do is, and all these experiences, they then form our beliefs around money. So for me, a big one was that you can't have it all, basically. So if you're going to have financial abundance, something might drop with your health, or it might be that you're going to be viewed as a bad person and that you're ruthless, or that you're a bitch, or that you're kind of shady. Because that, I guess, was one of the beliefs I had ingrained into me growing up. So every time I'd reach a financial milestone, I was almost kind of bracing myself for something else to go wrong. And a big one for me was health anxiety. So, and anything that I correlated with success, I'd be sort of bracing myself for something to go wrong. So I had to really kind of look at these beliefs and how do I view people that have money, and look for evidence that was contrary to my belief. So I formed a really good friendship with a client who then became a friend. And when we were due to relocate, this lovely client stepped forward and said, look, come and live with us until this relocations took place. We sold our house and we were basically waiting for our house to be built, which was on a really new build estate. So this was a massive eye-opener for me. So this friend has created a lot of wealth through business and through smart investments. And obviously I'm not going to get into personal details because it's not my job to divulge, but by financial standards, you're looking at huge financial success from humble beginnings. So, grew up in a very deprived area, went into a classic kind of profession like social work, and the husband was a plumber and blah, blah. And what they created was just absolutely phenomenal. But they were such kind people. And the hospitality, they took us in, they had like a barn on the grounds where they lived, and they let us live there, and they were so kind to us, and we got a really intricate view into the goings on and the family, and it just blew every belief I had about success out of the water. They were both thriving, healthy, they had a lovely relationship, they had healthy children, they had a successful business, and smart at managing the money. And a lot of ingrained beliefs that I had to really look at then on how I was kind of holding myself back through the beliefs that I subconsciously held. And sometimes you don't know, you're basing all your decisions, every action that you take around these subconscious beliefs that are running in the background. So I really had to sit and examine, and it really showed me what was possible, that it didn't matter where you came from. It didn't matter what your beginnings were. As I've said, these two had humble beginnings. My friend grew up in what you would class as a really deprived area, the locality where we lived. And a lot of people don't make it out of there. They just stay in the same cycles, with the same beliefs, with the same friendship groups. She was so influential in showing me what is possible. And I know life isn't about just money. I'm not saying it is. But this wasn't about money. This was about how to create a business that they'd created that helped so many people in the local community. So they ran a business that helps people with disabilities and receiving dignity, care in their own home, day centres, putting fun things on for them, giving people in the local community employment. So they were helping a lot of people. And that's when you see, actually, if wealth is put in the right hands, how it can do so much to help other people. It gives people jobs. It gives people in the community a lifestyle that gave them dignity, that gave them fun, that gave them joy. And this is where you realise, actually, it isn't money that's the problem. I want you to remember this now. Money is neutral in all of this. It's simply energy. It's about the person that's receiving the money, how they are and what they choose to do with it. So money is completely neutral. And you've got to kind of make the energy that you have around it neutral. So money isn't a reflection of you. It's not a reflection of your worth, of your value. It's simply energy. It's neutral. But what you've got to do is look at your beliefs around it and look really closely on what's coming up for you when you're discussing money. What's coming up for you when you're looking at somebody that maybe has money? What comes up? Do you think internally, my God, they're ruthless. They're just mean people. They're not, they've just not got no ethics. They're this, they're that. And really, really look at where that's coming from and what stories you were told when you were growing, when you entered this world, because you entered this world with no beliefs around money. You were neutral. You were a fun, happy, kicking baby, laughing away, just waiting for your next feed, playing. You had no views around money, but your views have become shaped by the environment that you grew up in. And I challenge you to really look at them and question them and ask yourself, are these beliefs true? Even down to your earning potential. So you will have a ceiling level on what you feel to be achievable with your earnings. So for me, a big one was looking at the environment that I'd been accustomed to. So I had come from the NHS where everything was done on bandings. You could, if you were at a certain level within the NHS that you had to go through the ranks, God forbid you could just jump to this level. Your ceiling level was expected to be a certain amount, and your beliefs will be shaping. You'll think that's what's possible for you because of the organisations that you've kind of been around. If you take, let's go really to the opposite end of the scale. Let's take an influencer that's on TikTok earning, 500 grand a year or something like that. Your mind, if it's so conditioned into the organisations that you've been working within, but just cannot comprehend that somebody could earn that amount of money without it being completely hard work, or what you would class as hard work, finger to the bone hard work, because you've just not been conditioned to that belief. And it's about opening your mind up as to what is possible. And it's being really, really knowledgeable about your finances. Become financially educated. Educate yourself. I've had to educate myself on the mindset stuff first. So the stuff that I'm going through with you now, which I'm going to be running a workshop on, but around my beliefs, what's possible, where I'm holding myself back, how I view money, how I view having uncomfortable conversations around money. That was the key, really. I think the internal stuff, constantly looking at that and looking at your beliefs, has to come first. And then it's educating yourself financially about what you do with the money when it comes in. I had no financial education. My mum, even my dad, really didn't take on board a lot of what my nana, his mum, was doing at all. So my parents have no financial education, and that's not through ignorance. It's just through generation. We can't possibly be financially educated. That's for the experts. It's smoke and mirrors. It's actually no. Anybody can become financially educated now. Anybody can become financially educated. YouTube channels, there's books, there's people that have set specific courses up on financial education. So a big one for me was Anne Wilson, also known as the Wealth Chef. And just joining Anne's Financial Freedom University, she calls it. She's a South African lady. Lost everything. Her marriage went down the pan, and from that day forward, she made it her mission to become financially free, financially educated, and to help other people become that too. So there are people out there now in this modern age. It's not about, going into a stuffy office with men in grey suits that seem to know everything and hold all the power, and you not know anything. Anybody can become financially educated. So I started to realise, actually, it's not your business often that's going to make you a millionaire. It's what you do with the money that comes into the business and how you direct it that's going to give you some financial freedom, and that's going to help to set up some security. So that was number one, looking at the beliefs. Again, if you need a resource to help you with this, I cannot recommend enough Denise Duffield-Thomas. So she works on money mindset. So I did one of Denise's courses. I bought her books. But it really got me examining my beliefs around money, which I still have to do now. Secondly was becoming financially educated. So Anne Wilson was a huge one, and looking at how I can make my money work for me. And then thirdly, when it's coming to your business, it's being financially aware of the numbers. Okay, so knowing what your fixed costs are, that's things that are never going to move as they are. If they're good, they might increase in price, but the things that you have to pay within the business no matter what. So it could be your rent, the energy bills, it can be the software systems that you use, it'll be staff wages, all that kind of thing that's pretty much kind of set in stone. Anything at all that you have to pay throughout the year that's completely fixed. Then the next one is going to be your products that you're using. So the treatment, how much that costs for you to purchase, and then obviously what you're selling that treatment for, consumables, all those kind of things. So we've got a handy profit calculator on the website that helps you to properly, accurately work out your margin, all those kind of things that can help you work out what your true margin actually is. And this again is where I really get triggered when I see people setting their prices really low. Now, you know, you might think to yourself, well, I'm doing it to be kind, but you're actually doing everybody in the industry a disservice that is educated financially, that's trying to price properly and smartly, that's trying to do everything completely above board. And, you know, we're looking at taxes and things like that, looking at knowing all the figures and the margins. And when you do that and you look at that, you know that you can't really price low. So it's not a case of I'm pricing high because I think I'm this. So you want to make your pricing factual. You know, you base it on real things, real figures, but making sure as well that you're really pushing past all those internal blocks that you've got. Because if you're setting your prices based on fear of what people might think of you if you're charging a certain price, or fear of not getting people through the door, or fear of having that uncomfortable feeling when somebody asks you the price of something, that's subjective, that's internal, that's based around belief systems. And you're never going to be, you know, you can never base your prices based on what other people might think about it, because as I've just showed you my background there, everybody has completely different experiences around money, depending on their experiences that they've had themselves in the past, depending on the experiences that they witnessed growing up, depending on the beliefs that have been in, you know, generationally passed down. So you're never going to please everybody, because how could you? How could you when we've all lived a completely individual life? So never ever set your prices based around the external, and go internally and look at what's coming up for you when you're thinking of setting your prices. So if you're thinking of fear that people might not come through, fear of what other people think about you, fear of having those uncomfortable conversations, that's a cue for you to really go inside and look at that and examine that and start working on that, and looking at those belief systems that you held and looking for evidence that's contrary to those beliefs, just like I had when I went to live with the couple for 3 months that really helped us out when we were in that location transition. It just opened my eyes up completely. And the more I saw that, the more then I saw evidence that supported that. So whatever your belief system is, your brain is focused to show you evidence to support that belief. So your job is to change the thought, which will then rewire your brain to show you evidence contrary to the belief. So I've seen a lot of mistakes with my parents, but I choose to have a different belief system, and I choose to believe that something else is possible. And I feel blessed at the moment that I've been able to create a life where I don't have to go to the clinic 6 days a week. That was never the intention, but, you know, I'm earning a decent salary that helps me to lead the life that I choose to lead, which again is individual to each person. If I'd have not challenged those beliefs and looked deeper, I would have just been carrying on the same cycle that was passed down through my parents, through my grandparents. And have fun with it, you know, challenge yourself to do things a little bit differently, to see what truly is possible. So this is not really me being the price police, I guess, telling you what to charge. But what I'm trying to advise is really look at what is going on internally. And that's kind of the first place to start. And then being educated enough to know how to direct that money when it comes, to help to make it grow. So this week, I guess, when somebody comes for a consultation and they ask you the price of something and you tell them the price, I want you to say that price with real conviction inside. I don't want no shrugging of the shoulders, going in on yourself, the voice quibbling, apologising for the pricing that you set. We don't apologise for the prices that we set. This is the price. There's always people that will do things cheaper. and accept that. If somebody doesn't like the price and they think it's expensive or it's not right for them, then let that go with peace. And that is fine. That's absolutely fine, because it's just a reflection of their own belief system, and you can't match everybody's belief system because it's just people pleasing. So you say the price with conviction, you make no apologies for the pricing, and you drop in to trust that the right people will come. And the people that aren't aligned, that just can't get on board with your pricing, just let them go. Otherwise, you're going to keep yourself in that cycle. And I guess the takeaway is, the more that you elevate and the more that you push past these internal blocks, the more that you examine these internal blocks, you will start attracting people that meet you on that vibrational level. But if you're holding the same beliefs inside around money, around pricing, around the stories, that you're going to kind of attract that same person into your clinic that holds those same beliefs. And you're both going to be stood there apologising for the pricing, or them not wanting to pay the pricing. So again, it's so much to kind of cover in one topic, but I hope you kind of get the gist of what I'm trying to say, just about looking at the stories you were told, examining those beliefs. Are those beliefs really true? Start looking for evidence to the contrary of those beliefs, and have fun with it, play with it, challenge yourself to think a new thought around money, have a new feeling around money. For me, for instance, at one point, I would maybe go into a huge designer store and feel uncomfortable, almost like I wasn't supposed to take up space in there, or it wasn't the place for me, or the whole energy around it was uncomfortableness about me not feeling worthy, me not being able to take up space there. It might be in a posh restaurant or something like that, I don't know, but challenge yourself to go into these places and start just feeling a little bit differently around it. And money and pricing, the very thing that underpins and impacts everything in your business, the success of your business, the freedom that you allow your business to give you. So this is just a really quick snapshot on a few things to look at. Get a coffee, pen and paper, spend an afternoon just looking at what you were told around money. Does people that have money, are they bad people? Money doesn't grow on trees, there's never enough. People like us that don't, where we come from, don't make money, or we don't know about what's financial education. How could we possibly be financially educated? It just, the whole array of things, what you've seen around money growing up with your parents, did it cause arguments? Just the list is endless. Start looking at that and looking at how these subconscious beliefs might have become ingrained into you, and how that might be subtly influencing all the decisions that you make through in your life, and how that then is going to have an impact on your business. So again, when I'm walking, there's no notes. I'm a bit back and forth, but I hope that makes sense, and I shall catch up with you next week.
For listening to this episode, I hope you discovered some useful tips and takeaways. Don't forget to please rate, review and subscribe, and as always, pass on to a friend who you think will find this podcast super useful.